This episode was chock full of nothing but goodbyes, and I think, honestly, as painful as it is, it was probably the only way to go about it, given that probably when we eventually get that season 2, most likely we're going to either meet back up with Roxy or Sylphie, and then that will be Rudy's party that he travels with. And it kind of feels like, if I was a guessing man anyway, by the time Rudy meets back up with all 3 of his, you could honestly argue, central love interests, they all would have had journeys with Rudy at different points in his life, and they will have all grown all at the same time. And it definitely doesn't feel like we're going to end up in a situation where Rudy picks one. I would honestly be shocked. I think it will be more of a Polly situation, which honestly, given his connections to all of them in the time period, makes total sense. But to see the parting scene of Rudyard alone was enough to make me say, my man, what are you doing? We need that mentor character. But they really aren't kids anymore. They've experienced more things than what children would from 14 to 15 their age. I mean, the fact that there's hope, the fact that his race isn't limited and has potential to break that curse. I mean, he has a different journey than Rudy right now. It's no surprise that he needs to leave. And for Eris, I mean, really getting that confirmation that your family's dead, and the fact that, you know, what do you do for your people? Do you do the noble highborn thing and marry a scumbag to keep the kingdom safe? Or do you go on your own adventure and make your own path, as you and Rudy have 2 different journeys yourself? But the fact that they actually directed the episode the way they did, from the very first shots of this episode, I was willing to say this was probably one of the best directed MUSHOKU Tensei episodes. I really feel that strongly. There was so many times there really wasn't even music playing. There was maybe subtle sound effect design, but it was just so much show don't tell. And to see the homeland of Rudy, just from what we remember, to having these horrible dreams, to the flashbacks of the good times. I mean, when he was walking towards that tree and you just saw the visions of his past as he reaches a barren wasteland, I mean, that hits you. Rudyard never saw what the homeland looked like, but I mean, everyone can tell that this isn't what it used to be, that it used to be full of life. They kick the episode off with, I think, the best directed dream sequence we've seen today. The fact that he's so scared about losing those close to him, that there's this beautiful party and everyone that he cares for or really have gotten to know are there as the horrible dream kicks in and he wakes up in his original life and everything that he's experienced is nothing but a dream outside that window. And I mean, that's a pretty real fear for someone who, you know, didn't have a good first life and was a pretty shitty person in that original life. To see that all ripped away and that it was all just a dream, I mean, it's probably a common thought for many isekai characters getting their second chance and wondering what if this is all a dream. So to see, you know, to kick off the episode with everyone essentially leaving him, and then by the end of it, they kind of did. But it's different. I mean, it's a pain, don't get me wrong, but there's always a chance of seeing them again. It's just, in this world with a random teleportation blast that can kill people or send them into areas that are going to get them killed, I mean, it's one of those things that you do have to wonder, would that be their last goodbye, or are they going to see each other again? And honestly, I'm hoping they do, but this is a world that's pretty brutal, and you never quite know. Strength and magical prowess isn't enough to keep you alive. It's all determination at the end of the day. But the sex scene was interestingly directed because I really like how Rudy said something very few anime characters ever say, let alone men in the real world. I feel like I might be taking advantage of her because she just got devastated. She realized that her family's dead. Her wanting to stay the night with him, that's something that, you know, most people in the heat of the moment wouldn't think about. But the fact that Rudy actually acknowledged that he felt guilty, almost like he was taking advantage of a vulnerable girl. The fact that she was so dominant and said, like, no, like, this is what I want. This isn't some emotional strain that I'm crying and I need comfort. That's what she wanted to do before she left Rudy for God knows how many years, because it probably will be that long before they meet up again. And I thought it was such a great directed scene because you saw restraint in Rudy. Something that, compared to what he used to say inside his mind or even out loud at times, that's not the same character anymore. That's someone who actually values those around him, and the fact that he restrained himself up until the point that he realized that it wasn't taking advantage and just simply like that's what they both wanted. It was a pretty powerful scene, especially with the way they did the cup scene where it was spilling and dropping and bouncing around. It was really, really well done. Though I'm glad we got a little taste of, you know, perverted Rudy at the end there. where he's like, good morning, everyone, I'm one of you now, I'm gonna go have a date with my girl. I just thought it was gonna be a situation where, like, she just pretended it never happened or something. I wasn't expecting, essentially, a breakup note for God knows how long, but you gotta leave it to the show to hit you not once in the feels, but twice with characters leaving Rudy. Now the big question is, with one episode to go before we wait for probably a couple years, maybe? A year? Who knows how long we'll wait for that season 2? Where does Rudy go? What's his next objective? Because I would assume Sylphie, right? He at first was very concerned that she was dead because the name was marked off. He has no idea where she is, but she's not on the list of dead. So that would make sense to me to try to maybe find the mother and hopefully Sylphie all at the same time. That could maybe be season 2's new objective or something like that. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we do bump into Roxy at some point as well, but nonetheless, like, the core that we experienced this season and just the 22 episodes as a whole is just remarkably well done character development with such an emphasis put on world building all at the same time. And I love that this show doesn't need to, like, have characters state things about the world. Visually, it tells you all you need to know about the history and the upbringing. I mean, that scene when Eris and Rudy were originally going into the area there where we meet up with Nguyen and everything like that, you just see a mother weeping as there's these couple of kids behind and you can tell that's the husband, right? You don't need to know that this is a period where it's not a great looking place to live, but that's probably the best you can get right now. And unfortunately, so many people are losing their families. You don't need to hear the characters say anything. You can see what they're experiencing, from the crumbled buildings to the crying mothers and everything like that. I think that's what I like about this show, is that it's not taking it too fast, but it's also not taking it too slow. It found a great middle ground at really establishing that initially when they were all separated, it's like, okay, immediately your natural thought is we should get everyone back together. But by having it really be a trio for most of this journey that we've experienced, you really got to build those two central characters alongside Rudy and feel like they've grown into such unique people that they can be on their own journeys. And now we can do the same thing with the other characters. And then by the time everyone hopefully gets brought back together, it'll be very interesting to see. I mean, from cutting of the hair to just everything like that. It's just, this was an episode. This was a very well-directed episode. And don't get me wrong, this show has always been well-directed, but there was something special about the visions and the fear of being alone and seeing Rudy cry at the end. Something you just don't get to see, and just the acknowledgement that, you know, he needs to be able to cancel magic similar to what he just dealt with last week if he ever wants a chance at surviving, and, you know, confronting about what is the man god and everything like that. This was just probably my favorite episode. I mean, this entire core, I think you could argue which was the best episode because it kind of gets progressively better, but there was something about the goodbyes, especially on Rudyard's side. I mean, comparing, I really loved the flashbacks they did. There was so much hostility at the beginning. Who would have thought that by the time we reached this point, we would feel as sad as we do that he left? It's just, everything was spot on, and even in the face of reuniting, it was still a goodbye all at the same time. Thoughts and feelings down below. What did you think, and where do you think it's going to go next week as we wait for season 2 afterwards? Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.